A halo car does wonders for brand equity, and every manufacturer needs something special in the lineup to incite dreams, adorn bedroom posters, and cast an alluring glow over the rest of the model range. And Mercedes-Benz has always been good at this. Just think back to the timeless 300 SL or the striking SLR, which they developed in tandem with McLaren. The SLS was a thing to behold as well, and it got them back into the swing of the super sports car segment. Now that the gull-wing wonder has flown off its perch, a new model takes the spot at the top of the performance car hierarchy, the AMG GT. But firstly, let's get a few things out of the way. This is not a successor to the SLS per se. Mercedes-AMG is getting for a different end of the market with the GT. They want to compete with the likes of the evergreen Porsche 911, the slick Audi R8, and at a stretch, the i8 from BMW. Maybe it is no coincidence that it echoes some styling cues from its Stuttgart rival, particularly in the rear side angles. Mercedes said they were going for a classic sports car appearance here, so they avoided the flame surface technique used so liberally on many of their other cars. And this time the doors open up normally, a move that saves weight and maintains structural rigidity. As you know, the practice of downsizing is the trend these days, but losing displacement doesn't mean losing power, which is something the AMG GT proves quite well. Under the hood, you'll find a 4-litre V8 turbocharged engine, pretty much the same mill that powers the new C63, except this uses dry sump lubrication. That means no oil pan, which means the engine could sit lower down, which means a better center of gravity, which means race car. The engine is good for 340 kilowatts or 375 kilowatts in the S model. It also has a hot inside V, which is not as suggestive as it sounds. It simply means the turbocharger is mounted within the cylinder banks. Being an AMG, you also get a plaque with the name of the man or woman who built your engine. Buying a sports car is an important decision, and one of the things you're going to consider is the way it makes you feel when you start it up in the morning. And let me tell you, the AMG GT certainly gets the oxytocin flowing. The first thing you appreciate when you're cruising along in comfort mode is that glorious V8 rumble. In this setting, it's really quite docile, leisurely, and a calm companion overall. But switch it into sport mode and the character changes instantaneously. Now we're talking. That mellow rumble becomes a roar, and the surge of power you get is really quite addictive. 0 to 100 takes 4 seconds flat, or 3.8 seconds if you're in the GTS model. And after that, it's not long before you find yourself on the side of the road trying to sweet talk your way out of a hot situation with Mr. or Miss Metro Cop. Not that we condone such things at Ignition. So the straight line kick is most certainly there, but how does it do in the aspect of handling? The depthness in this area is crucial. I mean, it is going for the jugular of the thoroughbred 911, and they have gone to great lengths to make it as balanced as possible. So the engine is placed as far back in the bay as possible, and the 7-speed dual clutch transmission sits behind me. The weight distribution is 47% at the front and 53% at the rear. Of course, it's also very light, with the body shell itself tipping the scales at 233 kilograms, and all the stuff around it is composed mostly of aluminium, magnesium, and other light alloys. So do all these measures work? Well, yeah. I mean, Mercedes-AMG says they don't want us to compare it to the SLS, but this just blows it out the water from a dynamic perspective. For this application, we have the drive select set to race mode. That sharpens everything up and gives you a bit of leeway for some theatrics, throwing a lasso around things just before they turn precarious. It really makes you feel like a regular Lewis Hamilton, even if you're me. And that's the great thing about the GT, its talents are really accessible. It's a high-performance sports car for all audiences. Now the purists might bemoan this, but Mercedes-AMG had to give this car universal appeal. They want to make sales after all. Another thing we really have to mention is the sound. These days we've become so accustomed to hearing a surfeit of synthetic snaps and crackles and pops, but the engine noise here is 100% authentic. It's all real, no auto-tune, and it sounds amazing! I certainly think our resident racer, Gugu Zulu, is going to find a GT Labs leaderboard king in this machine right here. It rates highly in terms of practicality too. The boot is quite commodious, enough space for 2 golf bags according to Mercedes-Benz. But I do have some gripes, mostly with the odd placement of certain switchgear, like the hazard lights up here. Strange. The interior is rather snug and luxuriously trimmed. Inside you'll find leather cladding on the dashboard with racy red stitching and a host of classy trim bits. There are plenty of aeronautic inspired cues too, like those air conditioning vents and the knobs on the center console. But being a German car, there is an extensive list of options, including a banging Burmester audio system and a reverse camera, which doesn't come standard surprisingly. Now, if there are any doubts as to the performance credentials of the new Mercedes-AMG GT, you just need to look at our ignition vanity plate, which it broke in half with its brutal acceleration. But back to the question at hand. Does it do justice to Mercedes-Benz's Halo car heritage? Absolutely. Unlike the SLS, this thing has dynamism and charisma in equal amounts, and it certainly gets my thumbs up. I'll take it in red, please.